Hi, I'm Mike Siri, Special Teams Coordinator for the Red Hawks of Montclair State University. Montclair State University ranks over the past 77 years as the 10th winningest percentage in Division III football. Under my tutelage, the Red Hawks of Montclair State Special Teams have flourished in the New Jersey Athletic Conference. In the past 2 years, we have ranked number one in the 6 categories of special teams that the league keeps statistics on. I want to thank Coach's Choice for allowing me to present information to help you gentlemen week in and week out win the field position battle. Today's presentation, we are going to talk about Special Team Strategies Part 1. Special Team Strategies Part 1 deals with a blueprint of organizational and practice concepts for great special team success. I will talk about my philosophy of why it's important to be a special teams coach. I will talk about our philosophy also in what we do and why we do it, and then take a look at our in-season and, of course, preseason practice schedules. We will also talk about some key drills that we do within those particular periods of the in-season and out-of-season practice schedule to maximize as much time as we can dedicated to special teams. Let's go to the presentation. The prescription for success that we preach to our players at Montclair State for special teams are: we ask them to play hard. Number 2, we ask them to be tough. And number 3, which is probably the most important of the 4, is we ask them to do their job. Stay focused on your task, especially as the game proceeds. The longer you get into the game with special teams, they focus more on their offense and defensive capabilities and their play, and they forget about special teams. So if you ever notice in a ball game, sometimes the last part of the game is very crucial, and special teams plays a vital role in the winning or losing of that game. And of course, the 4th point is care about special teams. I do not like players that do not care about this important component of the game. I think it's the entire game, but then again, I'm the special teams coordinator. I don't believe it's a third of the game. And we want to set the tone right from the opening kickoff, whether it's kickoff return or kickoff coverage. We want the other team to know that they need to deal with that other phase of the game. I've been coaching special teams for a long time, and one of the things that you need to understand is you need to have great enthusiasm and energy. When you coach special teams, you're not going to have a lot of time in order to work on your skills and drills as you would if you were an offense or a defensive coach. The second thing that I think is extremely important is it separates you from other coaches, and you'll see that in the next slide. And the third opportunity here that I think is important is that you are going to be building yourself and getting ready for you to do more than just be a special teams coordinator. And from that I mean you'll be handling personnel, you will be game planning, as well as you will be play calling. A lot of young coaches come to me and ask me, because I'm the special teams coach, will people recognize me to become a head coach? I emphatically say yes, and here's why. Number 1, the game of football, especially on the head coaching level, the number 1 job is managing personnel. You have had experience managing the personnel of the entire team. The second situation is it gives you a chance to develop younger players. When you're the head coach, you need to develop your younger players if you're going to have success in your future years. The third thing, it provides you on a weekly basis to address the entire team. Keep in mind that probably only the head coach and the special teams coordinator will address the team at any one given time as an entire unit. The next thing is it helps you with play calling. As a special teams coordinator, you probably have even a little bit more to think of than an offense and defensive coordinator. You need to anticipate the next play, but you might also need to anticipate what's going on with the weather. What is your injury status report? Who do you need to replace? And what's happening in the game itself? Are we dominating on offense? Are we dominating on defense? Can we take a chance? Maybe we cannot. And the other thing you need to consider is you're in good company. And you're in good company with people such as Charlie Weiss, Marl Levy, Bill Cowher, Bill Belichick, Johnny Harbaugh, and of course, Mike Smith. Why did I mention their names? They all started as special teams coordinators. Couple other things you need to consider before we look at our organizational skills. What are the 3 habits that are necessary in order to become a special teams coordinator, as well as being just a solid, good coach? Number 1, you need to be proactive. If you're watching me today, you're taking the first step. Other things that you need to do is go to clinics and maybe not pass by the special teams talks. Go to colleges, meet with coaches, watch their practices. And if you get a chance to also go to a training camp for the NFL, that would be also a very good choice. And of course, reading books and looking at diagrams from people such as Coach's Choice. The next thing is you need to understand that you need to begin with your preparation with the end in mind. What do I mean by that? You're going to need to do a mental check on what you want to do, what you have, and what your opponents are doing to you. You need to do a tremendous amount of film study. That's what you do in the off season. Once you have that, then you can start preparing or create physically, as you can see on my PowerPoint, what I am talking about. And that is, get your philosophy down. We're a man protection scheme. We are a man blocking scheme. Or you might want to do something else. But get that philosophy down. Then build your scheme as simple as possible. And then, of course, you got to develop the practice plan based upon what your head coach is going to allot you, especially in time management. The next thing is put first. What do I mean by that? What are the most important phases of the game? Make sure of the special teams. Make sure that you do them first. Make sure that you give them the appropriate amount of time that they deserve. At Montclair State, when I first started as special teams coordinator, just like I did at my previous schools, I started with punt and punt protection and punt coverage. We quickly moved on to kickoff coverage, and that's what we concentrated on the very first year. Now we are considered an offensive weapon because once I solidified those 2 categories, I moved on and looked at the game as an offensive attack mode. And that's what we do with our special teams. And men, when you look at schemes, there's thousands of schemes out there. Less is more. You get much more out of teaching the technique and minimizing your schemes and getting it right than it is to have 2 or 3 schemes. I was a teacher for most of my life, and I understand the more you give them, the more they forget. So we need to concentrate on less is more. The next situation is that you need to have simple goals so that the players know exactly where you're headed. When you look at the slide in front of you, you're going to see our game goals. Real quickly, I'm going to repeat them. No penalties. I've been very fortunate. I have only concurred, or we have concurred at Montclair State, 3 penalties in the last 2 years on special teams. No block kicks. I cannot say we haven't had a block kick. Last year in our final game in the ECAC playoff, we had 1 block kick. It did not result in a score, but we had 1 since the year 2002. No fumbles. We have not fumbled the football since I took over in 2002. Key part of the game. And of course, we want to create 1 turnover. And when you look at the number of turnovers we created, probably over 50 since the year 2003 with block kicks and causing fumbles and blocked extra points, we are doing our job in that category. Our statistical goals are reachable. It is not about individuals, it's about team. And when you actually look at the PowerPoint, you'll see that this makes a lot of sense, that, for example, the kickoff return team needs to get past the 35-yard line each and every time. That goal is obtainable. Look at the others and fit it into your program and fit it into what the league's average is. That's how I started. I looked at what the league was doing. I asked them the first year to get to that point, which we did in a lot of categories, and then we moved on and we upped the ante, so to speak, in order to continue with that improvement. The reason why those simple goals are important is we hop on this next slide with our players. This slide shows you the percentage that you have of scoring where the ball starts. You've seen this many times in many books that are out there, but I think it's important that your players understand that you need to win the field position battle. And you are the guys that set it up for the offense and the defense. They usually don't set anything up for you. Okay? You are in charge of real estate, and you need to be the barons of real estate when it comes to managing the football game. My approach to special teams is very simple. First of all, we think, not that we think, we totally believe in that it's an offensive weapon. Okay, we are looking to score. We are looking to score even though we're punting the ball. We want our players to have a mindset that they're going to knock the ball loose, pick it up, scoop and score, and get some points out of the deal. We plan to win every phase of the kicking game, and you're going to see that planning momentarily. Our schemes are designed to keep pressure on our opponents. When we run a return, we are still going to pressure the football. And we demand from our players consistency and efficiency, and we demand execution. I just don't want them at practice going through the motions. I want them to have intensity, desire, effort, and a tremendous amount of discipline. The kicking game is not a place for a guy who loafs. We expect our people on special teams to be 100% clubbers. We need them to go beyond each and every play. We are striving not to be good, we are striving to be the best. The next chart that you see, and you can study this when you look at the film, is how we have progressed from the year 2003 to 2008. The top category gives us the percentage of where we are in the league. As you look on the bottom part of the chart, you will notice where we finished. In the last 3 years, we have finished with no less than 2 first places in the category. And the year 2008, coming off a 8-3 season, you see that we had 3 categories which we are first place. I also put the team down that we're chasing in that category to give our players a little bit more incentive, especially the special teamers, on where we rank in the conference and who we have to go after. You're probably going to see this slide on each one of our presentations. But in order to be successful in special teams, you need to have a commitment from the head coach. You're going to understand what we do in our 45 minutes of practice on the field. You're going to also know what do we do at our meetings and the purpose of the 50 minutes of our meetings. And of course, some coaches I hear all over the country, I do special teams by myself. You cannot do special teams by yourself. Every coach needs to be involved. And I'm going to show you, including our head coach, who's our offensive line coach, how he gets involved with special teams. Maybe not every day, but he needs to be ready when he comes off the pad and brings his offensive linemen to extra point and field goal protection situations. We are a man scheme, and I'm going to repeat this again in our organizational part of this talk. Why do we like man scheme? Because it maximizes the developments of fundamentals. Number two, it coordinates. The coordination between players and scheme is minimized. The third thing is we like the one-on-one matchups. I like to watch film. I think all coaches need to watch film on a daily basis. And you also learn a lot about your players by doing that. And we also find that some players just don't want to do the job, so they need to visit another place on the field that they usually don't like to stay very long. The third thing is, fourth thing, it helps develop a large pool of players. The individual techniques can be mastered, especially if somebody goes down with an injury or we are traveling and we need to find another player because we don't travel with the full complementary of the team. We like the man scheme to help us get a replacement in there. When we take a look at our staff organization, you're going to notice that the head coach pretty much stays away from the special teams. Like I said, his one main job is to make sure that the offensive line is handling the protection of the place kicker. But he finalizes all rosters with me for the week, especially when we're going on the road the following week. And you'll hear more about that as we move on in our presentation. He also will make certain game day situations, such as should we go for it on fourth down, should we punt, should we use a fake. He's in control of that. But as far as calling the play, I am in total control as the special teams coordinator. My job is not only to design the schemes based on film study, but also making sure that I have the right personnel in the game to do those jobs. And again, we then sit down with the head coach and make sure that that player is traveling or that player is healthy for the week. I develop all the practice schedules, and I make sure that I go to each and every coach to make sure that they understand what drills we're doing for that particular day and how they fit into the scheme that we are going to use. I plan all the meetings and set up all the cut-ups necessary to make those meetings go a lot smoother. My position coaches are responsible for their little circuit training, as you'll see in that circuit training film, or if they're responsible for another phase of the game. As we take a look at the next chart, you will see some of those phases, and I'll point out some highlights that I think are important, and then you can study that at your leisure. If you take a look at the special teams coaching assignments, you'll notice that each one is broken down depending upon the unit that we are looking at. But keep in mind, gentlemen, a couple of the key pointers that I want to pick out. Every single one of them, besides having a coach assigned to certain areas of the kicking game, and within the kicking game, there is a coach in charge of the look squad. I make sure that I give that coach PowerPoint diagrams of what the opponents are doing and who they are blocking or returning against based on our scheme. They set up the unit, and it is their job also to motivate the unit to execute it to the best of their ability. What I try to do to instill a better look situation is I try to find one player each week, or sometimes every 2 weeks, that looks like they can take the place of somebody on the first unit and maybe get them on the bus in order to get them to travel. They get very excited about this, and I make it a competition. By the way, we even punt live, and if our punter gets hit, well, that's somebody in the blocking scheme's problem, or it's the punter hanging onto the ball. I believe in teaching game situation. So that look squad coach is going to fire up those guys, just not to go through the motions, but try to find a place to get on the bus. Player motivation is extremely important. And as you look at this slide, you're going to see the very first slide that I show on the first meeting of the night. And I make it very clear to them to compete for a special teams position. This is an earned and honored tradition. You just don't get it because you're a freshman and we don't want to use the starter. Okay, they need to understand that all players are chosen for special teams based upon their offense and defensive position first and what they are to the depth chart. Are they a first teamer or a second teamer? I asked them to show their stuff in the drills. I asked them to pay attention at our early meetings. And even if they don't understand the scheme, they need to be able to perform the fundamentals for each of those teams. And I sincerely sign this, as you can see it, Coach Mad Dog Siri. Because remember that enthusiasm and energy level, you must carry that as a special teams coordinator all the time. Remember, you're coaching across the entire field in a short amount of time, and they need to know that you are present at all situations. The next slide talks a little bit about whatever it takes, but the key part of this slide to your players is the bottom. When you look at the bottom, I tell these players how they are selected for special teams. One, they need to build themselves as a first or second liner, offense or defensive position. Or they need to be a multi-purpose special teamer. That means that they excel in more than one special team, especially the young guys. And then, of course, they need to have a specialty, and they need to be either one or two in that specialist category. Every single return guy that I get from high school all scored a touchdown. When they get even to our level in the New Jersey Athletic Conference Division III, they all cannot return the ball. So I try to preach that you need to be a specialist. And the idea is get on the bus. This year, we will be getting on the bus for our opening game, and not everybody's traveling. So I make that point immediately at our opening meeting. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is our team policy. I think you need to establish that special teams is important. And the first thing that we do is everybody attends every special teams meeting that we have. So you're not going to have the offensive lineman or the defensive lineman lounging somewhere else while these guys are working. Number two, we look at posting things in the locker room. We post them for a